everyone. I hope you are well and healthy. I'm coming today with a very important information for you. I believe that it is something that everyone should know about because it can be a powerful tool to heal yourself from all kinds of illnesses or unwell being that you experience in your life, and it really just takes the willpower and the choice to do it. I'm talking about a 21-day water fast, and it may sound really crazy and extreme for a lot of people, and I can totally understand that, as it is something that is unknown to us. I mean, we eat every day, not only once a day, but 3 times a day. It's just not something that is common. But it is something that is very powerful and can be a helpful tool for you to improve your health mentally and physically. And we will discuss more about why 21 days and the benefits of a water fast later on in this video. Nowadays, the food that we eat obviously makes us sick. Most of the people here on this planet are unwell and have a lot of different health issues. We do need to start to think differently and to be open to something new in order to improve our health, because obviously what we know until now doesn't really help. It just suppresses the symptoms or the sickness. Medicines or operation isn't really a cure, it is just suppressing symptoms. So what if there is another way? It makes you feel energetic and vibrant and healthy again, just alive again, without any medicine or operations or any of that. Wouldn't you take the chance to improve your health? So this is what this video is all about. A new perspective, another option to cure your body and to improve your health to a different level. I hope this video will be helpful for you and inspiring. Enjoy! Thank you so much, Loren, for taking the time for this interview.
It's a pleasure.
You are running a water fast called Tanglewood in Costa Rica for over 23 years now.
That's right.
You have fasted over 4,000 people during that time with all kinds of different health issues.
Pretty much everything you could imagine.
Okay. And you yourself have fasted in total, or not in total, maybe if we sum everything up, your whole fasting that you have done in your whole life, it's over 3 years.
That's right.
That's amazing. So who better to ask or talk about fasting than Loren Lockman? Let me take you way back in time, Loren, and ask you, what was the reason? Why did you decide to fast at the first place, and what inspired you to help other people fast and establish Tanglewood?
Sure. Okay, well, what happened was, I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., was relatively healthy. Like a lot of kids my age, especially this was back in the 70s, I experimented with drugs and alcohol. Started early, at about 14. And by the time I graduated from college, I was pretty sick. And I didn't realize it at the time because I had a caffeine addiction. So I was drinking 5 cups of coffee or so before lunch every day and using that to keep me going. And one day, in fact, I realized that I had a coffee addiction. And so I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore. And it only took a few weeks for me to realize just how exhausted I was. And so it turned out I was later diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic sinusitis, systemic candida, and 57 allergies. I'd become allergic to everything. I'd never had an allergy before. I'd become allergic to everything. And so at the time, all I really knew was Western medicine. So I went to a doctor, and it wasn't a particularly fulfilling experience. He didn't help me. At the end of the year, I thought I need to find somebody else, and I found another one, and then I found a third one. And at the end of the third year, I thought, I'm worse now than I was when I started. Okay, 3 years of medical care, taking drugs, I was getting worse. And so I decided at that moment that I was done with medicine. And I walked away. I was 26 years old, so it was 33 years ago. I walked away. I never looked back. I have not consumed medicine at all except for trauma. Well, I had an accident many years ago where I severed an artery in 2 places and decided maybe getting it sewn back together would be a good idea. But aside from that, I've never seen a doctor, and I don't intend to ever go back and see another one. I realized that all medicine really is the study of suppressing the symptoms of disease. That's all it is. They don't ever make people healthier. There's actually been several instances where medical strikes meant doctors stopped working. In Denmark, it happened in World War II. All the doctors went on strike. The death rate plummeted. And as soon as they went back to work, it went right back up. And this has happened several times. Doctors have the shortest lifespan of any professional. I realized something really important, and that was that health is the natural state of every organism. And that when we're not healthy, it's because we've made our bodies toxic and dehydrated and out of balance. And what we need to do is not go look for something else to take to fix it, because nothing fixes the body. Our bodies are self-healing. Our bodies are self-cleansing. But rather to simply get out of the way. And that's what fasting is. So, yeah. So I mean, what happened was I was looking for an answer. I realized medicine didn't work. I came across a book called Rational Fasting by Professor Arnold Ehret, and it was written back in 1929, if I remember correctly. He was long dead. He died a year later, I think, 30 or 31. And I came across this book, and it sounded interesting, but he was talking about going weeks without food, and I really didn't know if that was possible. So I'd grown up fasting 1 day a year. Jewish on my parents' side, both parents, completely non-religious. But I grew up with this tradition where once a year, 1 day a year, we fasted for the day. And I knew I could do 1 day. I really didn't know if 2 days was possible. So I parked myself close to the refrigerator and tried. And I survived 2 days. And then I did 4. And then I went 8. And I kept working my way up. And eventually was doing 21 days at a time, which to me at the time seemed kind of, pretty intense, pretty crazy. Like the idea that someone could go 6 or 8 weeks back then would have been really hard for me to imagine. Now, since then, I can tell you that our average client fast is 26 days. That's average. Many of them are longer. In the last year, I've probably fasted 12 people for 42 days or longer. I right now have 2 clients that are 30 days. One's finished and one's getting close to 30 days. We do these longer fasts all the time. But back when I was getting started and had no, and of course, this may be difficult for some people listening to understand, but all of this was taking place for me when I was getting started, when there was no Google, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook. I was on my own. I had a book by this guy who was dead, and I didn't realize there actually were places I could have gone to get supervised, but I didn't know that. I didn't even know how to find them. I didn't know they existed. So I did it on my own and worked up slowly. But
oh, that's amazing. That's really impressive. Going step by step and see how you feel, listening to your body basically, and go from there.
Well, I mean, honestly, I really didn't know what we do now, what I do now every day, guiding people through these longer fasts, typically 21 to 30 days, and sometimes longer. If you had asked me before I read this book, do you think it's possible to go 21 or 30 days without food? I would have said no, of course not. How could you do that? Now, the fact is, I can tell you today that the average person can go 6 to 8 weeks if they do it properly, if they know what they're doing, and it's done properly. The average person can go that long. And in fact, my longest client fast, not sure if you're even aware of this, but my longest client fast was 18 and a half weeks, 4.5 months, just water.
Okay. And I know that you suggest a minimum of 21 days of water.
That's right.
Why do you suggest at least 21? Why not more, or why not less, let's say?
Right. The reason is very simple. When we stop eating, our body goes through a series of different stages of the process. And it takes us 10 to 11 days to reach the deepest part of the process. So if someone fasts for 10 or 11 days, they're just getting to the deepest part of the process. If they fast and we book people here, as you know, by the week. So I work with people for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 weeks, whatever it is. If someone works with me for 2 weeks, they can fast 11 days with 3 days in refeeding. If they work with me for 3 weeks, it's going to be 16 days fasting and 5 days refeeding. And if they work with me for 4 weeks, it's 21 days fasting and 7 days. So if someone spends 3 weeks working with me, they can fast up to 16 days. That means they've got 5 or 6 days in the deepest part of the process. If they add 1 more week, they've doubled the amount of time in the deepest part of the process. So what we see here all the time is it's way more powerful. It's way more beneficial. And so, I'll tell people, look, don't, if you're thinking of only spending 3 weeks in the process, if you can do an extra week, do it. And if you can do 2 extra weeks, that's going to be more powerful still.
Okay. I also know that it might also depend on why people are coming to fast, what the issue is behind. I don't know.
Well, yes and no. I mean, what happens is, so almost everybody would benefit from going at least 21 days and maybe 26 or 30 days. Most people would benefit if they went a little longer. But when someone comes to me with Lyme disease or a thyroid dysfunction or let's see. Well, those are a couple of good examples. So if someone comes to me with one of those 2 conditions, I would say to them, most people with these issues need 26 to 30 days. And so sometimes I'll recommend that. Now with hypertension or type 2 diabetes, 2 conditions where we have virtually 100% success in eliminating the conditions. And if that doesn't sound significant to anybody listening, it's important, I think, to understand that medicine says these conditions are incurable. You take drugs for the rest of your life, you never get off them until you die, and our experience is 100% of the time, people leave here needing no drugs, with the condition completely resolved. Now, what happens after they leave here, how healthy they are, depends on the choices they make. People that follow the program I give them continue to feel and function incredibly well. People that aren't interested or willing to continue following that program, their results are going to be different. They're not going to be quite the same. Yeah.
You mentioned that we can only reach optimal health once the body is clean. Can you maybe elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? Because I know, but people might not know that about the older material that people are releasing in the past, which is very important.
That's right, yeah. And it's not just that. I mean, that's a significant part of it, but that's not the only thing. So yeah, the simple fact is that, many people think, well, if they make the best choices, if they optimize their diet, if they get enough sleep, and these are all critically important. I teach the 7 keys to optimal health, and it definitely includes getting an appropriate amount of exercise, not too much and not too little, getting enough sleep, getting, the environment that you're including air and water. All these things are critically important. How you deal with stresses, the emotional piece. But no matter what else you do, no matter how good your diet is, for instance, your body will not be able to use it as well as it should be able to use it if you haven't given the body a chance to cleanse and heal first. If there's still garbage in the body, things simply aren't going to work the way that they should. And I'll give you a very quick example of this. Years ago, I did a full-day seminar in the Phoenix, Arizona area in the U.S. And a few weeks later, I got an email from a woman who said, Loren, I was at your seminar. It was amazing. What you said was very interesting. I'm interested in fasting, but I'm nervous because I was diagnosed with a magnesium deficiency, and if I don't take a massive magnesium supplement, I don't feel or function very well. As long as I take the supplement, I'm fine. I said, what are you eating? She said, no, I eat the diet that you recommend. I've been doing that already for 3 or 4 years, 100%. But I still have a magnesium deficiency. So here's a woman who's eating a large green salad every night for dinner and is still deficient in magnesium. And that's interesting because leafy greens, right? Chlorophyll, the central atom in chlorophyll is magnesium. So how are you magnesium deficient when you're eating a big salad every night? So it took me several months to convince her to come fast, but she did. And she fasted 21 days, and she stopped taking the supplement, began fasting, immediately the magnesium deficiency, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was somewhere between 10 and 14 days into the process, all the symptoms had disappeared. She had resolved the magnesium deficiency while consuming only spring water, nothing else, no magnesium. And I haven't talked to her now for a while, but the first 2 years or so after the process, I actually saw her a couple times when I was back in Arizona to speak, and she came to my events. She was eating exactly the same as before, but no longer had an. So there's an example how someone who didn't change their diet, now they were getting what they needed when they weren't able to get it before the fast. And there's many examples.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Successful story. That's nice. And that was really just possible because she was fasting for 20 days.
That's right. Fasting. Well, let's clarify a little bit of what's going on. Why is this so powerful? A lot of people don't understand. How can starving help you? I hear this all the time. How can starving be good for you? Well, first of all, we're not starving, right? I don't know if you're aware of this, Marcel, but we need 2 to 2.5% body fat to survive. And yet, over the last 14 years, I've measured the body composition of more than 5,000 people. The average woman we see is closer to 30%, okay? So more than, between 10 and 15 times what she needs to survive. The average guy we see is somewhere between 20 and 25%. Again, considerably more, almost 10 times, 7 to 10 times what they need to survive. Why is the body holding all this excess fat if we don't need it for our survival? Why would that happen? Obviously people get fat because of what they eat, because they don't move enough. But the question is, why are we set up to hold the fat instead of just releasing it? Why do we hold on to it? Well, I think the answer is that in nature there are floods and fires and droughts and freezes, depending on where you are. There are these conditions where it might be difficult temporarily to find food. And so animals in nature have to be able to live on their own reserves because they can't always get a meal, right? You and I, most people on the planet today, there are still people starving, but are you aware that far more people die of an excess of food today than die of not having enough. Okay? And so most people, certainly most people, you grew up in Germany, I grew up in the US, right? Most people in these wealthy countries, they think they want to eat something, and 5 minutes later, there's something in their face because they've got plenty of food all the time, easy access to it. If they're not in their own home, where the average person's probably holding tens of thousands of calories, right, in storage. In most cities today that I've been to, there are many places open all night where you can get something to eat. We don't have to worry about this the way that animals in nature do, but our bodies don't know that. So we're storing these excess calories. I mean, of course, again, the way most people eat, they're going to become much heavier than they would otherwise. But the body stores fat so that we can survive in the absence of food. Well, fasting is simply voluntarily giving up food. So what do we live on? How do we survive? We survive on the body fat that we've been storing specifically for that purpose. And the benefit of doing that is that because we're not processing food and because we're breaking down this fat where most of the toxins, not all, but most of the toxins in the body live, where they're stored, now the body is able to liberate the toxins from the body. And so what we see happening are people achieving ridiculous levels of health and vitality as the body cleanses and heals itself to a degree that might have never been possible otherwise.
That's incredible. Could you, because I think that's also one important factor of the fasting, to get rid of old material that we hold in the body. And I think a lot of people are not aware that it can also lie in the small intestine, because a lot of people think it actually, or most of it lies in the big intestines. That's also the reason why a lot of people do enemas or other cleaning techniques. So maybe you can talk more about the black material in the small intestine.
Sure, yeah. Well, first of all, let me acknowledge that it's controversial because some people believe, including most doctors, that this stuff doesn't exist, right? I have a friend, an acquaintance I've known for many years, who spent 8 years supervising fasts himself at another facility, one of our competitors, and he believes after 8 years that this stuff doesn't exist. Now, having fasted with me yourself in a group with other people, everybody eliminated old hard material. When I say old hard material, for anybody listening, this isn't like eating something that's dry and then when you have a bowel movement it's painful. This is characteristically different. It's very hard, it's very dry, it's very painful, it's usually very dark, and it's often very, very smelly. And this is usually stuff that's been around for decades. So, and it's also important, I think, to point out, you said, well, some people think it's in the large intestine. I mean, people do enemas and colonics, and they do eliminate material. So there is some stuff that's in the large intestine as well. And the reason why is because the average body doesn't function very well. What should happen when you eat a meal is 8 to 12 hours later, there should be an evacuation. There should be an evacuation of what you just ate. Now, some people tell me, oh, my system is much better than that. Every time I eat a meal, I immediately have a bowel movement. And I think, ooh, that's not such a good thing. And they say, what do you mean? How could that not be good? I said, well, it takes 8 to 12 hours to move something through your system. So if you have your meal and you immediately get up and have a bowel movement, you're not eliminating that meal. Okay, the reason you immediately have a bowel movement is because your system, these tubes, are so full that if you put something in, it's going to push something out. Now, your tubes should be pretty much empty. You should eat a meal, 8 to 12 hours, you eliminate it. Maybe you've had 2 meals, so there's always a 1 or 2 meals in there, but that's it. A lot of people are walking around with 20, 30, 40 or more meals in their body. I mean, the average person has a 4-day transit time. 4 days from this northern opening to the southern exit. Okay, 4 days. And the average person eats 5 times a day. So that's 20 meals. That's 20, snacks, meals, whatever. 20 times they're eating something. that's still moving through their system, right? And we see people, usually people that are wealthy in nutrients, have big bellies. These people will often eliminate every day while fasting. There's a gentleman who's done 2 fasts with me now, 26 days and 42 days. So a total of 68 days. He's had at least 1 bowel movement every day while fasting. Yeah, at least 1. Now, if that sounds pretty impressive, that's more than, it's almost 70 bowel movements. I had a client once, a woman, who fasted with me 11 days and had more than 60 bowel movements in 11 days while fasting. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't want to use profanity on your recording here, but in English we sometimes say that someone's full of crap. Some people really are. Okay, some people really are. So now, enemas and colonics. So people come in and they've had enemas and colonics and they think they're clean. Often what happens is they'll do an enema or a colonic before the fast, thinking, well, this will be easier, the stuff will be gone, I'll feel better, etc. And then they're surprised when they still eliminate old hard material. And they say to me, how's that possible? Well, if you think about it, the large intestine, your colon, your large intestine is roughly the same length as your height, right? So in my case, I'm 6 feet, 182 centimeters tall. That means my colon's going to be around the same length. And it comes up and it loops over gently, and then it comes across the belly, and then it loops over and it comes down, and then it goes across to the exit point, right? About 6 feet, about 182 centimeters, less than 2 meters. Your entire digestive tract is 32 feet long. So your small intestine is about 20% of the total. That's it. Okay? And the rest of it is in the space, aside from the stomach, you from your mouth to the bottom of the stomach occurs somewhere here in the center of the torso. You probably can't see that point right now. And from that point to the ileocecal valve in the groin where the large and small intestine meet, right? It's only about 30 centimeters, about 12 inches. In that space, there's some 24 feet, 23 feet of small intestine, all packed into about that much space, okay, a foot. So it's all twists and turns, and it's 1/3 the diameter. That's why the small intestine is much longer than the large. It's called the small intestine because it's 1/3 the diameter of the large intestine. So it seemed to me much more likely that's where stuff would get stuck. Well, a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, we had some proof of this. I had a gentleman come to me for his 3rd fast, except that between the 2nd and 3rd one, he'd been diagnosed with colon cancer. His entire colon had been removed, and his small intestine came through an opening in his abdomen into a bag he wore around his waist. It's called an ileostomy because the small intestine is the ileum. So he fasted 42 days, and then he came back a year later and fasted again 42 days. Every single day, 84 days, there was old hard material moving from his small intestine into this bag. Just a little bit. Now, if he hadn't had his large intestine removed, it would have dumped into the large intestine, and it would have sat there until there was enough, and it was hydrated enough to be able to move it out. Okay? So some people do indeed move stuff out of their intestine, large intestine, with an enema or colonic. But during the fast, if they're doing it properly, this old material is going to come back in and reoccupy that space, and they're going to have to get rid of it later on. And doing so changes everything. Getting that stuff out of the body is truly a game changer. There's no comparison to what happens when you get rid of that stuff. It affects almost everything.
That's also one of the reasons why it is hard to actually hydrate the body if we have stuff.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is a hypothesis of mine, but I believe this is true. We see that because It's not really a hypothesis. We haven't done an actual study where but here's what we'd see. We see people come in, we measure their hydration level, they clean out a bunch of garbage from their intestines, and afterward, their hydration level goes way up. And that's what we see over and over again. And the reason why is because that old hard stuff is sitting in the small intestine. Every time anything goes through there, it's going to absorb some water, but it's never going to be enough to actually get it gone, to get it moving, because it hasn't been broken down yet by the body. So it never goes anywhere until someone fasts long enough and drinks the appropriate amount of water. Until they do that, it's like a giant sponge sitting there absorbing the water their body needs, and they never get hydrated. And it's amazing how that affects people. So much of what we think of as normal aging, I believe, is long-term chronic dehydration.
I think it is so powerful that we have the opportunity to heal the body just by letting it rest, just by getting out of the way, basically.
Amazing. That's right.
Good job, right? Without any medical, support or medicine, because that's what a lot of people are doing. They just don't know about this option, and they are suffering.
Right. That's right.
I keep taking medicines and maybe, thinking about operations so they can continue healthy and enjoy life.
They're getting organs removed. They're having organs removed from their body because they're not working properly. And it's because they don't understand that if they just give the body the chance to actually heal, the organ can heal, right? And unfortunately, today in the U.S., it's illegal for a doctor to suggest to someone that they fast or that they do any alternative therapy. They're only allowed to offer the options that conventional medicine. And so people are being kept in the dark on purpose. Why? Well, to be honest, it's because everything's run by Big Pharma. And what they want is your money in their bank account. That's all they care about. They don't care about your health. They just want as much money as they can extract from you.
Fasting doesn't make a lot of money.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But it does help, and it does really do amazing miracles. So can you maybe tell us some or give us some idea, who are the majority of your clients? Why are they coming to you? What is the majority of your clients' issues? So why do they decide to come to you?
It's hard to generalize because we see people from all walks of life. We've literally seen people here from more than 130 countries. I think we had a diverse group when you were working with me. There were 4 of you probably from 4 different countries. That's what typically happens. And it's everything. We obviously see a lot of hypertension because hypertension is one of the leading killers of people. Lots of people over a certain age are going to have high blood pressure, hypertension. We see less, but a fair amount of type 2 diabetes. We see a lot of arthritis. We see all the things that everyone experiences because we see a cross-section of the population. We see a lot of lower GI tract problems. We see tons of digestive tract distress. People eat, they feel bad. It's super common. And people are always surprised, but from my perspective, I think that in November, at the end of November, so what is that, 6 months from now, I will celebrate 29 years eating exclusively fruits and leafy greens. 100% raw, 100% vegan, fruits and leafy greens. And I would suggest to anyone, that's all that belongs in the human body. You can eat all kinds of stuff, but anything else you eat is going to create disease, dysfunction, dehydration. That's what actually causes most of the problems, is what people are consuming. It's the choices people make. But most people don't understand this. And so they continue to create problems. They continue to look to medicine to resolve these issues when all medicine, as I said before, all it can ever do is suppress the symptoms that are actually part of the healing process. And that's the crazy thing. They're thinking, the symptom's bad. I'm like, the symptom's not only not bad, it's actually what you need. It's happening because your body's cleansing or healing. Suppress the symptom, and it can't do that.
So you're basically saying a lot of issues can be healed with fasting.
Well, almost everything. I mean, almost everything. Let's be clear. It is possible. What's that? I missed that.
Almost everything. That's awesome.
Almost everything. Almost everything. Yeah. Almost everything. Because, I mean, so first of all, I alluded to this earlier. I said something about this, but, you know, there's a paradigm that says that eventually we're going to get cancer and heart disease, that disease is inevitable, and that the best we can do is to be proactive, take steps to prevent disease, because disease is inevitable. We have to prevent it. And my paradigm is very different. My paradigm says perfect health is inevitable as long as we don't create disease. Disease is inevitable only because everyone eats crap and, you know, does all these other things. If we don't do any of that stuff, there's no disease. There should be no disease whatsoever. And that's the reason why in 33 years now, I haven't been sick one day. And I've got 5 siblings, brothers and sisters. They all wear glasses, at least to read. Most people my age wear glasses. Okay? My vision is still better than 20/20. Okay? My body still works as well as it ever did. In fact, better now at 59 than it did at 18. That's what's possible. We can feel and function, you know, still be sharp. I mean, I remember, I think I mentioned it earlier in life, I experimented with substances back in the 70s, and I got to the point where I couldn't think very well. I just couldn't connect the dots sometimes, right? And that completely shifted after my first long fast. I'm like, there's my brain again. You know, now I've got that mental clarity that I was used to having when I was younger. Everyone can feel and function so much better than they think is possible. They're usually blown away when they actually realize what's possible for them.
That's beautiful. And you say optimal health. To just talk a little bit about this topic, optimal health is basically a raw plant-based diet consisting mostly of fruits and soft.
Well, yeah, I mean, optimal health is where every aspect of our being functions as well as possible. That's what optimal health is, and it may be that depending on someone's age, maybe they're never going to achieve that because there's already been enough damage. Right? I mean, you know, if you've been on the planet for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, the longer it is, the more damage you've created. Okay, so maybe people aren't going to be able to undo all of that if they're starting late enough. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to be able to undo enough that they're functioning so much better. For most people, you know, if you take somebody in their 50s, for instance, they're probably going to complete the process 15 years younger physiologically. The difference is so amazing. I'm going to open the door for the kitty. Hang on one sec. There you go, buddy. The difference is incredible. What happens for people? So optimal health is where everything works as well as possible. Now, you know, it's a theoretical thing. Maybe no one's ever going to achieve perfection. But if we're willing to give the body the chance to cleanse and heal, then make excellent choices, it's amazing what changes. So in order to get there, we need to look at all the keys. We need to meet all the body's needs as well as we can. The diet you mentioned, fruit, soft, tender, leafy greens, that's critically important because anything else we do is an insult to the body. The fact is, and you know, there are probably a lot of people listening right now that may not want to hear this, but the fact is that when we cook food, we create toxic compounds. We destroy nutrients. Okay, that's far from optimal. The body reacts every time you eat cooked food with an immune response. It creates blood cells and sends them to the digestive tract. Your temperature goes up. There's all these things that happen that are triggered simply by eating food, including food that most people think is healthy, but isn't if it's cooked. Not really. I mean, everything's relative, right? So people adopt a whole food, plant-based diet of cooked food, you know, including cooked food, and they do much better than they did before. and they think, well, this has got to be good for me. Look what's happening. But I think what's true, Maricel, is that everything's relative, and our amazing, virtually infinitely intelligent bodies, when we give them a chance, when we improve anything, we improve our diet, we get a little bit more sleep if we needed more sleep, we get more exercise if we needed more, we improve any of our intent, the attempts to meet the body's needs, we do a better job than before. What happens is our bodies are going to be healthier. But that doesn't mean that we're doing the best. It just means what we're doing now is better than it was before. And it's so important to understand that. Because if we fail to understand that, we get stuck. I meet people all the time who say, oh, no, macrobiotics, that's the best thing. I adopted a macrobiotic diet and my body healed. And I'm saying, well, it could probably heal more. Like, I'll guarantee you can take it to a new level. But no, I'm going to stay here. This is what eliminated the whatever it is. And they need to understand the diet didn't heal them, okay? Juices don't heal people. Supplements don't heal people. Superfoods don't heal people, right? What heals your body? You know what it is, right?
Yes, the body itself.
Your body, only your body. Healing, cleansing, and healing biological processes. And that means the living organism, and only the living organism can do them. So when people sell herbs to cleanse your body, they're not cleansing your body. That's not what's happening.
Oh my God, Loren, so many information. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for what you are doing.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Very, very.
It's a pleasure.
And enriching for the world.
You had asked me a question earlier that we didn't get to. I'm sorry to cut you off. You asked what made me decide to do this.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little bit more about my background. So I graduated from college with a degree in finance and economics and a minor in psychology. And then I went on to finish most of a master's degree in finance. Now, I didn't finish because I'd left the company that was funding 100% of my education. It was expensive. And they were paying the whole tab because I was an officer of this company, and I left them to start my own commercial real estate company. I was in the commercial real estate finance field, and I decided I was going to start my own firm. And I didn't care if I had the degree or not. I'd already studied all the courses I wanted to take. There were some requirements left, but not stuff I really wanted to study anyway. So I stopped there. I worked in commercial real estate for 10 or 11 years, and I made a lot of money there. But after I got myself well, what happened was people who knew me would see me. If they hadn't seen me for 6 months, they'd see me after I got myself well, and they'd say, oh my God, you look amazing. What did you do? And then they would say things like, can you help me? Or can you help my child? Or can you help my spouse? Or my parent? Or my friend? And of course, I believe everybody wants to contribute. And it felt good to help people. So I was like, of course, I'll be glad to help you. Let's sit down. I'll tell you what to do. I'll share as much as I can. And before I knew it, I was spending more time sharing about health and diet and fasting than I was running my business that was theoretically paying the bills. And things got a little rough there for a while because of that. And I thought, okay, you know what? I would much rather do something that actually feels like it's contributing to people. I mean, what I was doing before was making rich people even richer. And I didn't need to do that. Somebody else could do that. It's not something, I wasn't really excited about that work, right? It made money, but it's not that important to me. I wanted something I was actually passionate about. And when I got my own health back in 6 months, I was healthier than I'd been in years. I thought, more people need to know about this. And I looked around. By then I realized there were fasting centers. But I looked around at them and I thought, they were like hospitals. They felt cold and sterile. And they were in cities. My biggest competitors on a busy intersection where you can hear traffic noise all day long. except unless it's drowned out by the televisions in every single room in the building. Here there's one television, and it's not connected. There's no broadcast TV. We show a movie one night a week. That's it. There's no Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi throughout their facility. We have no Wi-Fi. There's almost no cell phone signal here. We're in the jungle. We're surrounded by beautiful gardens and trees and orchards, and the energy, the impact of that is amazing. In fact, it was actually an interesting hospital study. They looked at people in hospitals, and what they found was that people who were in a hospital bed who had a view from their window that included trees healed 30% faster than people that couldn't see trees. And here, we're completely surrounded by nature. So our main living area is open on two sides to gardens. There's no walls. It's just open it's like a covered patio. All of our guest rooms, sit in gardens or jungle. I mean, you look out your window and what you see is amazing nature. And the impact on that is incredible. Yeah. So I realized that what I wanted to do was contribute in a way that I never was going to be able to do in real estate. And that's what drove it. And it's, it was the best decision I ever made. In 23 years now, I've barely worked a day because I don't consider, I've been going, it's 9:20. I've been working since 5 o'clock this morning. I have stopped to have 2 meals. I've, maybe taken 5-minute breaks here and there, but I've never felt like I was working. I was talking to amazing people who are committed to their own health, and I'm so excited to do that. I was responding to people online. I actually had another podcast recording today with somebody else. I spent several hours, 4 hours talking to clients on Skype. And this is the best, I get paid to do this. It's amazing. I don't actually get paid, but the center takes in money. The center houses and feeds me and flies me to speak. And I have no expenses. And this is what I get to do. It's amazing. And I live in paradise. It's a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good deal.
That's very inspiring, Loren. That's very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're very, very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd like to leave people with one simple idea. I said before, perfect health is a natural condition for every living organism. Okay? And so, my guess is that most people listening to this or watching this aren't experiencing anything close to perfect health. And so if your body is not feeling or functioning as well as you'd like it to, I just want you to know you can change that. You have the ability to shift that. Now, frankly, I think no expert in fasting would ever encourage anyone to do more than 5 to 7 days without having experienced guidance. But I would say it is so worth the investment you make, because doing it properly means you get the most benefit. You learn a tremendous amount, you stay safe, and you come out of the process feeling incredible and functioning in a way that maybe you haven't been able to function for 10 or 15 or 20 years, maybe ever in some cases. It's worth it. But don't give up, no matter what they've told you. Okay, no matter, doctors have said, no, you can't heal this. Nonsense. In most cases, you can. There may be some, but in most cases, your body can heal if it has a chance. Don't ever forget that you have the ability to create whatever you choose to, including an amazing level of health and vitality.
Thank you so much for that, Loren.
You are very welcome.
And thank you again for taking the time for this interview.
It's a pleasure. Always nice to see you.
I'd like to add that I have done the 21-day water fast myself, and I can honestly say it was one of the best decisions that I have made in my life. It's almost like I have pushed a button and reset my health, and I have given the chance to make it right this time from scratch. So it was an incredible experience. We live in a time where the food that is available to us is created to make money, but not to make us healthy. And obviously it does make us sick. The majority of people on this planet are unwell and sick, and continuing doing so obviously will not change anything. It will just make things worse. That means that we do have to change something, and we have the freedom to change something. We have to start being open to something new, to something foreign, in order to improve. And that is the only way to improve. A lot of people think that it is normal when we get older that, you know, we have some kind of issues and that we are sick with age. But who says that? Who says that that is normal? What about being healthy? Doesn't matter how old you are. Who says that is not possible? Think about that for a moment. I think personally that we have, as individuals, have the power to decide if we will be healthy, energetic and fit with age, or if we will be sick and, you know, not so energetic. It is a choice that we can all make for ourselves. And the first step to do that is by just being open to something new. If everyone would be healthy on this planet, the world would be a different place. I might be doing another related video about my personal experiences and fasting in general. So if you have any comments or questions, let me know. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Take care.